Welcome back to the channel, y'all, with our adventures through climate change. Sometimes I have to remember which channel I'm actually speaking through. If you don't recognize me, I'm Trevor Snyder, and I'll be your host as we're figuring out what's happening with climate change. I got a lot of questions, obviously, and there's so many roads you can go down with climate change. Is it the CO2 problem? Is it the melting icebergs? Is it getting hotter? Is it getting colder? We used to call it global warming. We used to worry about the hole in the ozone layer, and now we're more worried about stronger hurricanes, more flooding, rivers and lakes drying up, etc. And is this really happening? What's happening? What's good and bad? What is what? Okay, let's break into what video we are breaking down today, because we are armchair searching, meaning we're just sitting here and we're just doing some research, watching some videos, and we can comment and talk and whatnot. This is from PragerU, The Truth About CO2. I'm a big fan of PragerU. You might not be, but I still suggest you actually watch. I haven't watched this one. I like PragerU. They usually tend to agree with more what my thoughts are. And I do think CO2 is actually more important than what people make it out to be. And they think it's like so much worse than it is. And the plants require it. They also require oxygen and everything. So this is The Truth About CO2. Let's get this going right here. And this is Patrick.
What are two of the dirtiest words in the English language? Well, if you're concerned with global warming, as so many people are these days, the answer is obvious. The two words are...
Okay, I just got to say we're back at global warming. So this is 7 years ago from PragerU. Might be a little bit dated, but some of the research with the CO2 and stuff is pretty spot on. We'll actually look into something more recent in a future video. But let's hear what Patrick Moore, I think he said, has to say.
Are carbon dioxide, or as it is known by its chemical symbol, CO2. One atom of carbon and two atoms of oxygen. If we pump much more of it into the atmosphere, the argument goes, we're going to alter the climate, catastrophically. According to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, CO2 emissions from fossil fuels, which constitute 85% of our energy use, must be reduced to zero by 2100.
It's not 85%, but it is still upwards in the high 70s, I think. I'll have to look on that. But even 7 years later, it's still in the high 70s. And the reason being is because it's super efficient for what we have developed. We've had a lot of years to develop special things, filters, things to catch it and do different things. And it's super efficient for heating and cooking and whatnot. And it probably will be for the next 50 to 100 years till we really figure out more things and how energy and elements work and whatnot. So anyways.
If we don't save ourselves from ourselves, we're toast. That's the claim. Here's what's strange, though. All life is carbon-based.
Correct.
And the carbon for all that life originates from carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. All of the carbon in the fossil fuels we are burning for energy today was once in the atmosphere as carbon dioxide before it was consumed by plankton in the sea and plants on the land. Coal, oil, and natural gas are the remains of those plankton and plants that have been transformed by heat and pressure deep in the Earth's crust. In other words, fossil fuels are 100% organic and were produced with solar energy. Sounds positively green.
I don't think it takes as long to produce oil as people think. And we do have it like, when I was in the oil fields, the Bakken up in North Dakota, we had to drill about, it was, on average between 10,000 and 12,000 feet down. And then there was a layer, it was like 90 feet, between 30 and 90 feet wide in the rock that they would go down to, and then they'd have to go over. And that layer would be between 10,000 and, between 9,000 and 12,000 feet. And that's considered the Bakken layer. Now, then they'd go 10,000 feet over. We'd blow up the pipe in different spots, and we'd fracture the rock, and we'd pull the oil out of that Bakken layer. And So they drill down that far, and that's where the bucket, and that is organic material that had been broken down over time. I just don't think that was down there as long as they think. I personally think it's only been down there probably about 5,000 years, and I'll tell you why. The breakdown with heat and pressure into that stuff, already when we see like mulch and we see organic material and you see any sort of, like, if you simulate something with a little bit more heat and a little bit more pressure, it creates that like oily type of stuff. They create like an ethanol and oil, gas derivative, I should say, in a short amount of time with organic materials like corn and wheat and all sorts of stuff. I think that if it was that deep, and hey, you have an ice age or something, you have a bunch of water melt, and a bunch of land and dirt and sift gets moved around and stuff, it can end up being 10,000 feet of shift, because the last, what most people are saying, the last ice age was caused from more water coming up from underground than it was from coming raining down. So, and I don't know if that has to do with mass volcanoes everywhere because of asteroid or whatever. I'm not quite sure. All I'm saying is that oil, I think, potentially is a lot younger than we think. And I think carbon dating is a little bit off, but I digress because I can go on a whole different rant on that later, and it has to do with carbon 14, carbon 12. And then we go down another rabbit hole and we can argue down that one. I'm not talking about that right now, not in this video.
If there were no carbon dioxide in the Earth's atmosphere, the Earth would be a dead planet, period. Talk about catastrophic climate change. Take away CO2 and you'd have it. And yet the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency has deemed this essential ingredient for life a pollutant. But how can something that makes life possible be bad? Before I deal with that question, let's get clear on our terms. It has become common to refer to the emissions from burning fossil...
Real quick, the reason why we can get warm is the atmosphere and whatnot, and not all planets have atmospheres, and when they don't have atmospheres, they're a lot colder, correct? Look it up, but I'm pretty sure that's the way it goes.
Fossil fuels for energy as carbon emissions. That is entirely misleading. Carbon dioxide is not carbon. Carbon dioxide is a colorless, odorless, tasteless gas, which is an indispensable food for all living things. Mm-hmm. Can you have too much of it? In theory, yes. That's what climate alarmists say is happening now. CO2 levels are getting too high. Are they right? Well, if we look at the big picture, we find something surprising. For most of the history of life on Earth, carbon dioxide has been present in the atmosphere at much higher levels than it is today. During the Cambrian explosion, when multicellular life first came on the scene, CO2 levels were as much as 10 times higher than they are today. From a big picture perspective, we're actually living in a low carbon dioxide era. The optimum level of CO2 for plant growth, for example, is 4 to 5 times what is currently found in our atmosphere. That's why greenhouse growers worldwide actually inject additional CO2 into their greenhouses. They want to promote plant growth. Likewise, higher CO2 levels in the global atmosphere will boost food and forest productivity. That will come in handy.
We see that now. Areas that weren't green before. There's more trees on the earth now than there was 100 years ago. And I could be wrong on that stat, but I'm pretty sure. And a lot of that, is ice melting and there's more availability of spots, and people thinking about this type of stuff. But it's just more CO2, more green.
Since by mid-century, we will have to feed 8 to 10 billion people.
We're there, buddy.
In fact, we're already seeing the positive effects of increased carbon dioxide now. Satellite measurements have noted the greening of the Earth as crops and forests grow due to our higher levels of CO2. It turns out that carbon dioxide are not dirty words after all. We should celebrate CO2 as the giver of life that it is. I'm Patrick Moore, co-founder of Greenpeace for Prager University.
Join Prager University. Click here to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click here to sign up for free at PragerU.com for quizzes, contests, and prizes.
First of all, I love PragerU. I think they do a lot of good stuff. They make you think. Listen, you don't have to agree with everything, right? Because we're not going to agree on everything anyways. We could be presented the same facts and still be sitting here having discussions. I'm a creationist. I think that God created the earth, and I think that somewhere 6,500 years ago or so, that it was created for us. And it could be a little bit further than that, but I do think that that's it, buddy. That's it. And I think there's a lot of things that even science-wise, I've been a science guy my entire life. I'm like Bill Nye. Yes, I have my bachelor's in science, but I don't know if I just take in information and I try to critically think and see what I think about that. I think that he was spot on with this video. I think CO2 is actually the maker of green things, the maker of a lot of life. So, and I think we need to take that out of it. With that being said, man, I hope you're subscribed. If not, please hit the subscribe button. Hit a like. If you dislike it. Throw it out a comment. Share other videos that I should be watching, whether in contrast to what I believe or, for it, whatever. Stuff for me to watch and break down and see what I think. And you guys can beat me up for that later down the road. In the meantime, in the last few videos, just so everybody knows, they've been picked out by friends of mine that are just sending me stuff from time to time on what I think, because we just have discussions, when they're over barbecues and stuff, philosophical times, right? And anyways, we'll catch you on the next video.